So in the last exercise, we used the object literal syntax to initialize an address object. In this exercise, I want you to initialize an address object first using a factory function and then using a constructor function. So your exercise is to write two different functions. One is a factory function, the other is a constructor function to initialize an address object. So go ahead, and when you're done, come back, continue watching. All right, first I'm going to do the factory function. So factory functions simply return a new object. Here we can call this function create address. We should give it three parameters: street, city, and zip code. And here we simply return a new object with three properties: street, which we set to the street argument we receive. Now, as I told you before, if key and value are the same, we can make our code cleaner by dropping the value. So in this object, we're going to have these three properties. That's it. So that's our factory function. And we can simply create a new address like this. So instead of using the object literal syntax, we call create address and give it these three values. Now let's log the address on the console to make sure everything is working. Okay, here we have a new object with these three properties. Beautiful. Now let's write the constructor function. So constructor function. As I told you before, constructor functions have a different naming convention. So instead of camel notation that we use in factory functions, here we use Pascal notation. So the first letter of the first word should be capital. So we're going to call this function address. Again, we're going to pass three parameters. Now here, instead of returning an object, we're going to use this keyword to initialize this new object. So this.street, we set that to the street argument, then this.city, and finally this.zip code. Now, to create a new address object using this constructor function, here we use the new operator and call our constructor function. Once again, we pass these values and log this address object on the console. So save the changes and we get the exact same object. So the purpose of this exercise was to help you get familiar with the syntax for creating factory and constructor functions. In the next exercise, we're going to look at object equality.